Here we go with an awesome General Lee jump over a water fountain in Somerset, Kentucky. As you see, there it goes, boom, right through the water fountain and crashed into the wall. Almost took out a camera. Look at this dude. Almost hit the camera. There you go, a little bit. That cameraman dude was lucky. He came with about an inch of getting run over when he stuffed her in the wall over that. And we got to get over this sensitivity over all that stuff. If your feelings get hurt, too flippin' bad. Double flip in a parking lot? This is bizarre. This is from KCAL News. Review. There you see it.
That was a heart-stopping moment right there. That's video from Canoga Park. A driver loses control in Vallarta grocery store's parking lot this afternoon on Topanga Canyon.
So he clips the car that's sticking out a little bit and flips it over when he stopped. How fast was this dude going in the parking lot? I mean, he picked that other car up. Look at this. So let's see if we can go slow. So see that other car? That was parked. He hooked that black car you can see just sticking out of the tailgate. Hooked it, flipped it over, flipped himself over, and then hit the minivan. Bizarre accident, as they say.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yes, oh my God, as the lady said. Like you see, that car, that second car, was parked. He hooked that, flipped it again. How fast you got to be going in a parking lot? I wonder if he was running something or girlfriend was in his ear. Man, we got a lot of devastating fires in the Inland Empire. Cable fire just broke out in Purdue. We had the Wolf Fire out in Banning, Silver Lakes Fire, Mandalay Fire in Riverside. Now we got the Juniper Fire, which is there kind of between Hemet and Paris, kind of there as you take the 74 off the 215, headed into Hemet. That's in the general area it is. You see the crews battling, and there's lots of rural homes, mobile homes, big lots out there, like 1, 2, 5 acre lots. One of the few rural places left, but you're seeing some of the ABC7 footage out there in Paris, Juniper Flats area. There you can see it's very, very hilly and rural out there. So, and I think that one's up to 800 acres out there. And the Wolf Fire out there in Banning is up to what? 1,500 plus acres, and they still don't have much containment on that. This one's spreading fast. Man, they're just busting out all over the Inland Empire. I don't know, I guess it's our turn out here in the IE in the fire season. Donald J. Trump sues LA over sanctuary city immigration policies. ABC7 report. Maybe, if it will play.
Breaking news, the Trump administration suing the city of Los Angeles, Mayor Karen Bass, and the LA City Council over its sanctuary city policies. In the lawsuit that was filed in California's Central District Federal Court, the Department of Justice says the city's sanctuary city laws are illegal and violate the Constitution by thwarting immigration enforcement. The DOJ alleges the city has refused to cooperate or share information with federal immigration.
If you thought DTJ was playing, he's not. For any reason. Suing the Department of Justice. Engineer Bill O'Saley, in charge of the U.S. Attorney's Office for Trump, out here in Central and Southern California, explaining precisely why we need this type of enforcement. And we're going to get later on into this with an interesting interview with Steve Bannon, Lieutenant Cassis, and Ben Berquam. Here's Bill Asaley.
What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. It means that we are unable to work with local law enforcement to go after the worst of the worst and criminals. In every other state, we can go into a county jail, we can screen criminals for their immigration status, and we can take them directly from jail and deport them. We can train police officers to do immigration screening, so when they run into people committing criminal activities, we can focus on those people and get them deported. We can't do any of that in the state of California, so we have to go out into the community and we have to do broad immigration enforcement operations. And when we do that, yes, absolutely, people without criminal histories are going to get swept up in those operations.
So there you hear it from Mr. Asaley. The state of California, the sanctuary cities and the de facto sanctuary counties like Riverside County became this year. They're making our communities more dangerous. They're making it more dangerous for the actual criminals getting picked up. And those that are here illegally or unlawfully but haven't broken any laws or hardworking and all that are getting swept up too because of the sanctuary city state policies. So those of you supporting that are against the very citizens or persons or people here lawfully that you try to cry crocodile tears to protect, but you really hate them, you want them deported, you want them out, but you don't have enough guts to say it. And you're disingenuous every step of the way because you know, all of you, especially you politicos, know exactly what you're doing. And it's unconscionable, it's inhumane, and it's going to live on your legacy and conscience for all time. We'll get to this later, but Bill Asaley's full statement, which basically rolls into that. Brian Kohberger pled guilty to all counts in the Idaho College murders of the 4 young ladies that were murdered up there. He will not face the death penalty, but he will serve 4 consecutive life terms and waived all his rights to appeals. So it's Idaho, so maybe he will. Hopefully, he spends the rest of his frickin' days behind bars, I would say in solitary confinement. But if he was in California, he'd have a very good chance of getting out. But let's hope the Idaho folks stay strong. Don't copy California. Keep him locked up for frickin' ever. Dad, this is a stunning story. His young daughter, 4 years old, falls off a Disney cruise ship into the ocean, which usually means most of the time they're not recovered. He, off the top, 4 stories or whatever. I'm assuming it's like off the top. They said 4 stories up. He jumps off, finds her, treads water for 20 minutes. This guy, if he ain't hero dad of all time, he's got to be in the top 3. Here's the 10 News report from Florida.
Terrifying turn on board a Disney cruise ship.
And a father leaping into the ocean after his daughter suddenly goes overboard. And tonight we are seeing the remarkable rescue and hearing from a passenger who witnessed it all.
Let's get right to Local 10's Roy Ramos live at Port Everglades, where that ship returned earlier today. Roy?
Yeah, and that ship has just set sail again, but that witness I spoke with said she watched as that little girl fell overboard. Moments later, she watched as that father was searching through the water for her, fearing the worst would happen. But fortunately, rescue crews were able to pull them both out safely. A sigh of relief from a father moments after he and his daughter are rescued after going overboard the Disney Dream cruise ship Sunday.
It seemed like it was going to be something that was just devastating, tragic.
Passenger Monica Shannon told me she and her family were taking pictures when she watched as the little girl fell from the 4th floor.
They were playing shuffleboard, which is actually right, so it was on the 4th floor. And I think like maybe the parents were playing, and then the little girl was climbing up on the railing and went and flew off.
In this piece of video, you can see the race to rescue as crews rushed to pull the two from the water and into a rescue boat. We learned the cruise was returning to Port Everglades in Fort Lauderdale following a 4-night cruise to the Bahamas.
That's an absolutely stunning story that they both survived that. And fortunately they did. Lucky would be it hitting the lottery, but to see that. Monday Mayhem, this is John Harshberger, Santa Maria Speedway a few years ago, but sprint car racing is a tough business. There he is. Oh. You hear the motor getting cut off. So, and the reason I did that is Santa Maria Speedway, after being dark for 3 or 4 years, has been brought back. And I think we played the video of that a couple weeks ago. But good to see him back. A little bit of nostalgia on Monday Mayhem. Burglars hit another jewelry store, got over with $1.5 million cut through. Same like the other one, cut through the building. It's something else. Another tragic story that we'll get to here in a bit in our weekend roundup. A very famous 16-year-old motocross racer died in an accident back at Loretto Lens Park, where she has all the kids racing in there and has for, God, multiple decades. And he was a very promising up-and-coming motocross racer. He passed away on that, so condolences to his family. Rest easy, sir. There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live 5 and Evil FB Network, Rumble X, YouTube on the Roy Bluckert channel. Man, lots of news coming on. Fire season going in the Inland Empire. ULA got their turn at it. Hopefully we won't see, and it looks like the IE crews are much better at it. They're getting these things knocked down and structure and property damage to a minimum on all the fires going out. Idaho's popping. The tragedy of the fire, the big fire that was going up there, and 2 firefighters were ambushed. The good news is one of the firefighters that was taken to the hospital in very critical condition seems to be recovering from some multiple surgeries, and they're very optimistic that he will recover fully from the injuries, at least the report I saw. So we'll keep you up to date on that and much, much more. The big story in Dr. Kelly Victory should be on at the bottom of the hour, like she usually is on a Monday. The big story, besides all the fires and the tragedies and things that are going on, the big story is, and if you thought Trump was playing, I think what happened today, or this was a Friday, whenever that lawsuit was filed in court by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Of course, Trump's the president, Pam Bondi's Attorney General, Bill Asaley, our U.S. Attorney for Central and Southern California, which most of this audience is very familiar with, filed in U.S. District Court in Los Angeles challenging the sanctuary city and state laws where they can't go in and cooperate. They can't go in. They're releasing somebody out of the Riverside County Jail, Sheriff Chad's jail, Sheriff Dykes' jail in San Bernardino, Don Barnes in Orange County, Looney Tunes in LA, and any of the other ones. 58 counties. Say, hey, it's called a detainer. ICE sends a detainer saying, we want this guy. We have federal charges, criminal charges ready to file. Your jails, except in very rare cases, in your counties are not allowed to turn them over to ICE. They have to be let out into the community, which causes, as Asaley said, and you've heard Tom Homan, and you've heard the ICE agents, and law enforcement, and everybody else, how dangerous that situation is. Because now these criminals are out there, now they got to go hunt them down. Send out the SWAT vehicles and all this other stuff. And again, the collateral damage, like Asaley said, well, if there's a bunch of illegals standing around there getting swept up in this, they're going downtown, they're being detained, and if they're not in this country legally or lawfully, they are being deported. So I want to get to, this was a very good interview by Steve Bannon on his War Room program on Real America's Voice. It epitomizes the two differences in what's going on in two cities. Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, which is all the east end of Texas, where you saw the pictures early when the Biden administration, they were all there under the bridge coming across. That's the Rio Grande Valley. From that whole eastern side butts up to, so the river, Pacific Ocean, whatever it is in there, separates Mexico from Texas. This is Steve Bannon, Lieutenant Casas from the La Jolla Police Department in Texas, and Ben Berquam's doing the interview or with him there. Steve's back in the District of Criminals, and I don't know what. The only biggest thing I question about Steve Bannon is why he's in the swamp and not out with the real folks. But this was a great interview and shows the clash and why law enforcement should cooperate, why illegals should be deported. We go. We thought. Let's see if Steve will talk.
For Hispanics and for the hardworking Hispanic citizens in South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, how has life changed since President Trump's come back for his second term and actually sealed the border in the first 60 days, sir?
Well, everything did change. It's like night and day. First of all, it completely slowed down for us. The illegal migration and these undocumented immigrants coming in almost completely ceased, which allows us to work on real cases that of chasing the real bad guys, not just these people that wanted to turn themselves in. So it changed us.
So there you have Lieutenant Casas saying when local law enforcement is able to cooperate with state and federal officials, everybody is safer. The cops are safer, the community's safer, even the illegals are safer. And it completely is changing the community of La Jolla, Texas, where he's a lieutenant. Well, What?
La Jolla, Texas, down near McAllen, and it ain't La Jolla, California by a long shot, and Lieutenant Manuel Casas. First off, Lieutenant, just for Hispanics and for the hardworking Hispanic citizens in South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, how has life changed since President Trump's come back for his second term and actually sealed the border in the first 60 days, sir?
Well, everything did change. It's like night and day. First of all, it completely slowed down for us. The illegal migration and these undocumented immigrants coming in almost completely ceased, which allows us to work on real cases that because they're still committing crimes, whether there's human smuggling, which they're still doing, drug smuggling, they're holding people for ransom, all of those things, even committing murders over here in the United States. So it allows us to focus directly on those type of cases versus us having to go out there the way it was when this mass invasion happened. It took us away from doing what we're really supposed to be doing out there, is to serve and protect, which we were doing, but to a certain degree, we were kind of letting go of the putting our emphasis on true criminals that were actually doing some bad stuff in here in the United States.
Like Lieutenant Casas has said, the cartels are running in the United States. We've told you that. Where do you think the bags of cash that have gotten the Joe Bidens, the Jasmine Crockett's, the Gavin Newsom's, the Eloise Reyes, who doesn't even show up, hasn't showed up for the Assembly or the Senate, California State Senate for 6 months? No explanation. The cartels are running stuff in the United States. Drug, human trafficking. It's pathetic.
Lieutenant, I use, and here in the word we always talk about it as an invasion. You just use the word mass invasion. Is that how it was for you? Did you consider it a mass invasion? And more importantly, did the citizens of La Jolla, Texas, consider an invasion, in particular an invasion onto their rights as American citizens?
Yes, without a doubt. It was a mass invasion. Got to the point where it was out of control. We even got swarmed. I can use an example. Giving them water one time, we got swarmed to the point where I had to take the officers out of there because the people were fighting over the water. And people were calling us constantly, hey, there's somebody running through my backyard, my dogs are barking, somebody's knocking on my door, somebody's kicking my door. It was nonstop, and it was completely out of control. Nobody could help, not even because we had Border Patrol out there. We had Texas DPS out there. We had game wardens out there. We had everybody you can think of was out there, but yet it was not enough.
The citizens of La Jolla, Texas, welcomed DPS, Department of Public Services, the state-run deal, the local law enforcement, and ICE agents and the federales coming in, cleaning up their town. La Jolla, Texas, well, that is very probably 60 to 70% Hispanic. And again, it's not like, La Jolla, California, a very ritzy area. This is very working class area. And they loved. You don't see the protests and all the crap except in the liberal landscapes of Houston, Dallas, which is becoming that, San Antonio, Texas.
Right now, with ICE, the big beautiful bill is up there. One of the most important reasons, besides the tax cuts, the extension of the President Trump wants us through here, is that during the Biden regime, somehow the logistics all got shut down for ICE, and there's so many illegal aliens in the country. President Trump, the Senate bill, I think, has $150 to $170 billion Are you seeing, is ICE have the resources right now? I mean, are you guys assisting them? I know they had this big fight in the Texas House about, I think, 287G. I mean, what's exactly going on with the deportations, with ICE, and with your guys' involvement?
You know, when we're asked to help because they're doing an operation in our city, I'm just using our city as an example, we're going to go out there and help them. I've been asked that question many times, you know, are you part of that? Well, we're part of it when they ask us for help because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to back them up. They not necessarily have come into our city, but all our surrounding cities that are around us have there's a lot of presence of ICE in these areas, especially these flea markets, these small businesses that are hiring these undocumented immigrants. Because we had Border Patrol out there, we had Texas DPS out there, because they're doing an operation in our city. I'm just using our city as an example. Immigrants or illegal aliens that are getting hit by ICE, and every time they ask us for help, we have to go out there and assist them as presence so that these people know it's law enforcement. Because some of these agents, unfortunately, don't always wear a uniform. They just wear their vests that would say police and ICE on them. And just about anybody can put that. So when we bring these units out there, and
It's gone up into the more interior of the country, or can you feel?
So there's the difference. The people and surrounding communities, as Lieutenant Cass has said, in the Rio Grande Valley, which is like all through there, 60 to 70% Hispanic. Welcome the ICE agents. Welcome that wanted it enforced, wanted the undocumented workers who are taking the jobs away from jobs Americans will do. Here's more. We thought.
Feel any impact at all so far down in McAllen, down in La Jolla?
yes, that is a very good question. Actually, there is an impact, and I'm going to tell you that. And business-wise, there's some areas that are known that these undocumented immigrants were renting out to do their whatever type of work they were doing, whether it's car washes, window tints, or whatever it is, selling food, whatever. What that would do is it would take so much of them being there that nobody that was here legally in the U.S. could rent those areas. But when President Trump went into office and ICE was out there and they started working, these people just basically disappeared. And now the regular U.S. citizen that wants to have his business, washing cars, whatever it is, just basic stuff, are able to do that. Because as soon as this happened, these people either moved, left, or self-deported themselves, believe it or not. But yeah,
But hang on. Let's.
Jobs Americans won't do. In La Jolla, Texas, they were glad the ICE agents moved them out. Now they could go back and make a living, start a business, have a job. Washing cars, selling food. Jobs Americans won't do. Stuff it up your ass. Everyone that says that. I don't care if it's Mary Baby Jesus over here in Moreno Valley or whatever. All you doing the protesting and saying this, stuff it up your ass. Quit lying to the people. You know exactly what you're doing. You're making slaves out of them so you can stay up on your altars or have your big jobs. In government, perpetuating this crap. Stop it.
Lieutenant, hang on a second. We've been told over and over and over again that American citizens won't do those jobs. Are you saying that the media was wrong? Are you saying the Democrats are wrong? They're actually American citizens that will step in and actually do those jobs and make a living and get some income? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. You know, there's a lot of young men, I'm going to use an example, that love washing cars, and they detail them. And they charge very well for that. But they didn't stand a chance before that. But at least now, because of that spot that was left for them, they're able to continue their business. Yeah, there's people that work those jobs. Here, we're in South Texas. I don't know about, I cannot speak for other states or other parts of the state of Texas, but here in South Texas, people will work. And those jobs that they say that nobody wants, yes, they do. They'll work them. Maybe there's some they won't work, but I can tell you for the most part that I know.
Lieutenant Cassis, I want to go back to, so Lieutenant, just to reiterate, at least as far as you see it with the evidence that you see in South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, there are young people and Hispanic citizens that will step in and do those jobs, so that at least when people talk about the Rio Grande Valley and South Texas, they're lying when they say, well, we need illegal aliens here because they're doing jobs Americans won't do. Is that correct?
That's correct. You got to remember, there's people that don't have necessarily a higher education, although there is a lot of people here that do. But there's people that have trades, and those are the ones that will detail those cars. They're the ones who make their small businesses, and they exist. They will work. I mean, they say, well, the sun.
Oh, hey, my package came. Thank you so much.
Well, as we say, and you heard it from Lieutenant Cassis right there. Jobs Americans won't do. Remember when Buffoon Bass down there in LA was saying, well, who's going to do the construction jobs? Oh, those are jobs Americans won't do. How do you think 98.7% of everything in the United States of America got frickin' built? They were built by American citizens, just like the guy opening up a hamburger stand or a car detailing or a construction or getting a construction job, doing framing, plumbing, asphalt paving, whatever. You were undercut, underbid, and like the lieutenant said, as soon as ICE got them out, as soon as ICE showed up, they all left.
But if people say that no one's going to do those jobs, that's a lie. Because I know very well, because I live here, that people will work, and they're looking for work. And for that opportunity to be able to do the work and get paid for it, versus not having a spot because someone else took it that shouldn't even be there.
As the lieutenant said, it's a lie. They won't do. Americans' jobs won't do. And farm worker jobs, you know what? Why don't you say this? There are unlimited temporary, up to 6 months per year, work visas for farm workers to come in. So stop lying to the freaking people.
Ben Berquam, you're down there. You're going to be doing more specials down there. Tell me what you're seeing, sir, since you've been the last 4 years of your life in and out of everything related to this issue, and now we're trying to set it right here up in the Imperial Capital. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Steve. Well, this is just one example. I'm honored to be back down here with Lieutenant Casas. This is where Law and Border began 4 years ago under the invasion of Joe Biden. I was here doing some of those police chases with these guys, going after the really bad guys while the others were coming in. You have to remember, all of the illegals that were being brought in by all these Catholic charities, all these NGOs, the United Nations, they were all being used by the cartel as a distraction to be able to push the really bad guys. Now Border Patrol is able to come really bad guys while the others were coming in. You have to remember, all of the illegals that were being brought in by all these Catholic charities, all these NGOs, the United Nations, they were all being used by the cartel as a distraction to be able to push the really bad guys. Now Border Patrol is able to come back here, not be Uber for the cartels, but actually be able to be on the line. Lieutenant Casas is able to protect his community. ICE is able to go in there. And to the point now where Border Patrol is actually doing joint operations with ICE. And so
there you have it. As we've said 20 gazillion times, this is why illegal immigration was in. 21st century slaves, slave labor, undercut, and your NGO, criminal organizations, if you are Catholic charities and you are participating in helping the cartels do human trafficking, sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and you know exactly what you're doing. It's really stunning that a religious organization that's supposed to represent all the goodness of God and Jesus Christ and all that stuff, and you will stomp and screw your fellow human being, probably in as many numbers, what, 10, 20, 30 million just in the last 4 years. In mass numbers that have never been seen before in human history. Shameful. Disgusting. A lot of other words I could use, but I really shouldn't. It's, like we say, it's beyond criminal. That we're enduring this. If it wasn't for Trump, that's why we said, man, we don't get Trump in there this time in 24. And Trump said it. A lot of people said it. All the MAGA folks knew it. And all those newly minted and mined MAGA folks are coming around too. Man, did we dodge a bullet not having that goofball Kamala in. And now Trump is cleaning out these, like Buffoon Bass and suing Gulag Gavin Newsom. Maybe we will get it working like law enforcement from the local to federal level is in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, like you just heard. First-hand report from Lieutenant Casas down there.
30 seconds.
In La Jolla, Texas. As Sean said, we will be joining the Mighty KMAT here in a few seconds. Hopefully we'll have Dr. Kelly calling in, as she usually does, on a, what is today? Monday. Oh, man. What a deal. We'll be...
Here we go, 10 seconds.
We'll be hitting it and... PatriotSwitch.com.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 KMET, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band. Join a vast video audience in the ERUPT Network, Rumble, X, YouTube, on the Roy Bleckert channel. Check us out, subscribe on all that stuff. Tons of fires breaking out in the Inland Empire, some of them contained, some of them still to the Juniper one out there in the Paris, Juniper Flats area just started, and that looks nasty going on out there. We, looks like though, for the most part, at least IE firefighters are containing very, very, very minimal property damage so far that I've had. So thank our lucky stars for that we're not the dumpster fire as we are in LA. Lots of stuff, the Idaho stuff, the tragedy of the two firefighters that were ambushed and killed, along with the man who did that. The one good news is one of the firefighters that was rushed to the hospital in very critical condition. Looks like he may be on the road to a full recovery or close to it. So thank our lucky stars for that. Top of that, Koberger, the one that murdered the 4 young college students up there, pled guilty to that. At least the Idaho folk won't have to be paying for very expensive trials and all that. He won't get the death penalty, but they settled on life in prison, no appeals, no nothing. And being of Idaho, at least it isn't in California, where he'd have probably been out in 5 years with all that. Went through the border stuff and all that, breaking out the report from La Jolla, Texas, and Lieutenant Casas. But as we usually do on a Monday, we have, as I've determined her, the supreme physician in all the world, expert on COVID-19 and just about everything else, Dr. Kelly Victory. Welcome to IE Newswire with Roy.
Hey, Roy, always good to be with you on a Monday or any day.
I want to get to this, and we covered, of course, the Trump administration, Donald J. Trump, through Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, but more important, Bill Asaley, our U.S. Attorney here in Central and Southern California, filed a lawsuit today suing Buffoon Bass down there in L.A. and that goofball governor of ours, Gavin Newsom, challenging the sanctuary cities. We just ran through the last half hour. Steve Bannon did a great interview and Ben Berquam with Lieutenant Casas down there in La Jolla, Texas, on the Rio Grande Valley. Probably, and that whole area is like 60, 70% Hispanic. They're talking about how great it was ICE that came in. They are cooperating with them, and the locals, which again are 60 to 70% Hispanic, were absolutely just ecstatic. Not only were their communities safer, but they got to do jobs, like they got their detailing jobs back, or opening a hamburger stand, or working in construction. And the cartels are gone as soon as I showed up. And it happened like that. And this is what Trump and the U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley are doing out here, and what desperately, in my view, needs to be cleaned up here in California. We can get this done. We can get the sanctuary crop out of that. We'll go a long way to turning California around, Dr. Kelly.
No question, Roy. Look, I toggle between two states, Colorado and California, and they both are plagued with issues with illegal immigrants. And they both have historically taken this ridiculous stance of being sanctuary states, and they've paid the price for it. There is no question that those immigrants, those people who came to these states, both Colorado and California legally, and who want to work here, they are ecstatic about the idea of getting rid of the illegals. They don't want to be a sanctuary state. They don't want to be undercut. They don't want their families, their livelihoods, their businesses, their opportunities to be undercut. So they're thrilled with it, in addition to the fact that the rest of us are as well. So the reality is, if California would adopt the right positions on these things and go back to enforcing this, allow ICE to do what they're doing, get these illegals out of here. I don't care if they're gangbangers or just people who are here illegally. They all need to go. And people who came to this country via the legal process are happy to see it as well.
Since you can attest to this better than I, since you split your time between Colorado and California, Colorado has basically became a de facto subsidiary of California, with a lot of the net cases from here moving up there and bringing the policies in. What flashed back in my head was the city in Colorado last year in the Biden administration, where the Tren de la Garagua gang had basically taken over the city, and the governor there, whatever his dingy name is, was denying it. The city officials, except one or two council people, were sending an alarm and everything. They don't know what they're talking about. Nothing's going on here. Everything's perfect. And then it became out that, yeah, they were basically running the town in this whole thing. And it is spots like that, certain parts of Colorado. Now it's coming to New York. You can see this. Chicago, you see especially the blacks are doing the same thing. They're saying, get these people out of our areas. They're taking our jobs, they're making our communities safe, they're labor, sex trafficking, and just turning our communities into utter trash. Dr. Kelly.
No, what you're referencing is absolutely true. You're talking about Aurora, Colorado, where some of these Venezuelan gangs had literally taken over multiple apartment complexes. They were essentially terrorizing the people who lived there. They had taken them over. They were holding, and the idea that the mainstream media, that anybody else was denying that this was happening, was insane. We were watching it with our own eyes. And so unless states like Colorado, California, and listen, let's not ignore what's happening right now or potentially happening in New York City with this guy who's running for mayor, unless we take back these states and say, no, sanctuary, no more. We are not going to do that. We are going to uphold the rule of law. We are not going to allow American citizens. We are not going to allow people who came here legally via the legal, sources that they could come into this country. We are not going to allow them to be terrorized, to have their livelihoods threatened, their children threatened. It can't happen. It certainly happened here in Colorado. And look, it's happening in a lot of states around the nation. Michigan has been overrun with illegal immigrants. Certainly Minnesota has. And it comes in, it's not just from Mexico. These are people from South America. These are people from Asia. They're people illegally from lots of the Middle East. And we have got to retake control of our borders. This is something that Donald Trump ran on, and I think it's probably the single most important thing for most voters.
1,000%. You mentioned New York. Eric Adams, the current mayor, got into trouble with the Biden administration because when they started dumping, 750,000 or some ridiculous number, he said, hey, wait a minute. Obviously he's experiencing the Colorado or the mainly California, Arizona, Texas deal we've been for decades, and they're going like, whoa, like the folks in Chicago. It was great when it was just, down here on the, West Coast, southern area of Texas of that. Once they got a deal of it, and they started charging him and all that stuff. But now we have this deal. But the deal is, and there is a strategy, I believe, with that ranked choice voting. And whether, if Slee was in there and Adams and even Acomo stays in or whatever, they can beat that guy. All they got to do is don't, because they're not going to probably drop out or nothing, then that's fine. Just on your ranked choice, everybody that's not voting for the communist over there, put him last. That way, if he doesn't get to 50%, if there's that many candidates, and he probably won't, then he will be the first one kicked out, and then it'll be against the other three. So use what I'm saying, and this is it. Use the tools you have available to you wisely, like the other side has done, and then you will be able to beat them, Dr. Kelly.
No question. My concern is that this guy, this he's more than a socialist. He is truly a dangerous guy. He is offering to people of New York, free health care, free food, free transportation, rent control, the sorts of things that unfortunately the average uneducated individual might vote for. He is a card-carrying anti-Semite. He is honestly a dangerous human being. And I'm hopeful, Eric Adams isn't exactly, awesome. But I'll tell you, Eric Adams compared to this guy, is truly something that we've got, otherwise New York is gone and Florida is going to be overrun with New Yorkers who are fleeing there as quickly as they can possibly get the hell out. And what will happen is that obviously New York will go under because were this guy to get elected and carry through on all the things he's, promising, as I said, free daycare, free health care, free transportation, government-run grocery stores, all of this crap, unfortunately, there's going to be no tax base to support it. And therefore, the country will go under just like any other socialist country goes under. As Margaret Thatcher said, the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money.
1,000%. And it's just like really, I guess it's kind of like my theory in California, why I'm encouraging and telling everybody to encourage Kamala Harris to run. Because she's the most beatable. In the second place, if she does win, she's probably no worse politically as far as what's going to happen politically. But then let's just burn California to the ground and rebuild out of the ashes. And I think New York City's facing that same deal. We'll be facing this first at the end of this year before we do next year with the governor's deal. But they should. And it's going to be interesting to see as much brain power supposedly and all the rich and powerful and everything that's in New York, if they can figure this deal out, because the financial industry will be in a heap of trouble, which is the heart of it's in New York, if that clown gets into the mayor's office.
Well, New York City is a financial hub, frankly, of the United States. And there's also, let's face it, a large Jewish population there. And, if they don't see what this guy is, truly, that he is a card-carrying anti-Semite, that he is a socialist at best, that's the best thing I can say about him, and that he will destroy New York City. I'm hopeful that Eric Adams will ultimately get the endorsement of none other than Donald J. Trump. I think it would be an awesome thing for Trump to actually endorse Eric Adams and say, look, we come from different sides of the aisle politically, but you are way better than the alternative. And I think that would go a long way to getting New Yorkers ultimately to come together, to coalesce, and to save their city from this absolute, disaster that would, this other guy would be.
Switching gears a little bit, you put up on the X-Magazine, according to JAMA, COVID-19 infection during pregnancy increases the risk of illness, intensive care unit admission, on and on. Like that wasn't predicted through this whole ordeal. Now we're seeing the results, and we're seeing who told you the truth and who didn't, Dr. Kelly.
Absolutely. And, this is an out and out fabrication. This is a lie from JAMA. There's absolutely not a shred of evidence, Roy, that pregnancy increased your risk from COVID. In fact, if anything, pregnant women did better during COVID. There's absolutely zero indication that pregnant women should be getting a COVID vaccine, a booster, anything like that. We know that it's caused untold harm to women and their unborn babies. We know that it had a huge impact on fertility overall. Fertility rates are down across the globe. But this is just a fabrication on the part of JAMA. And I would defy them to show me any, actual evidence that what they're saying is true. And it's because all of these, are once storied medical journals, whether it's JAMA, the New England Journal of Medicine, all of them, they are owned by Big Pharma. There's nothing that is published in those journals, Roy, that is anything more than the marketing arm for Big Pharma. It is marketing propaganda. And honestly, we have got to get our arms around that. One of the things that Bobby Kennedy has done is said that the NIH will not publish in any of those journals. They're creating their own journal that's scientifically reviewed, by peer reviewed. They will absolutely refuse to publish in any journal that is supported by Big Pharma dollars, because that's the only way we can ever return integrity to medical science.
1,000%. I mean, like, how can you say a study produced by somebody who's going to profit from it? I mean, they're going to tell you 100% of the truth one way or the other. Right. That happens every day. We know human nature, and it doesn't change. Somebody that is going to get a benefit from somebody or sees it is going to slant it at best, if not right outright, say whatever they have to benefit themselves. And we've been hosed on the healthcare industry, and that's another big one with this whole deal getting debated with the big beautiful bill and all that. And it's like with the whole Medicaid deal. Started out was supposed to be for disabled people and children as a last resort. Now what? 70 million people are under it. And that's what they're saying. This is ridiculous. This program, again, Royism 101, no matter how well-intentioned these government programs are, 98.7% of them wind up graft, corruption, and failure. And this is another one. And trying to straighten it out once it gets in here, we can see how difficult it is, but we must do that before it crashes our whole healthcare system, Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree. And I think that unfortunately we are not seeing the kinds of changes so far that I would have liked to see, given that we've got Bobby Kennedy there, at the helm. I am not, frankly convinced that that things are going the way we want. We have got to get our arms around. We've got to return integrity to healthcare sciences, which means disarticulating the involvement of big pharma in our medical schools, in the medical journals, certainly in the research that happens. We've got to, in some way, start to rebuild the confidence that people have in the healthcare system. Right now, it's kind of a free-for-all. People don't know what to believe. They don't know where to go. When you add in the prevalence of social media, AI, all of the rest of this, people honestly don't know who to believe, who to talk to, who to listen to, and that's not a good place for people to be.
No, 1,000% on that. And, I hope a few of the senators are really holding out, like Ron Johnson and company of Rick Scott, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, are really holding out on this, especially the Medicare reform. I mean, we've heard the crocodile tears of the whole thing, like with jobs Americans won't do and the whole thing. They're playing the emotional trigger like they got it in there. Because that's the thing is once they knew they got their foot in the door, then it's just the floodgates are open. They can do all this stuff, and we got to, they're just like you said, they're just talking about some very minor reforms on this stuff, and we're hearing like the whole healthcare system's burning down, which it is, but it's because they're doing these things, and they don't want to. The vast majority of them don't have enough guts to correct it, Dr. Kelly.
No, I agree, and I'm not sure exactly where we go from here. So many of us had great hope in Bobby Kennedy Jr. He's somebody who I know personally. He's somebody who I trusted. I advocated for him to get in a position of power, but it appears that there's so much pressure from the lobbies. There's so much pressure from big pharma, and let's face it, senators, congresspeople on both sides of the aisle have taken millions and millions of dollars on an annual basis from big pharma. It just makes one wonder if it's ever going to be fixable, if you will ever get the stack. And so I think the only thing I can hope for is that people start to say, you know what, I'll make my own darn decisions. I will not follow the mandates. I will not, listen, Bobby Kennedy came out the other day and said that he hopes within 4 years that every American is using a, quote, wearable. I'll tell you right now, Kelly Victory is not, going to be using a wearable. Kelly Victory will not be using anything that allows the government to capture, biometric data on me, whether it has to do with how many steps I walk, what my blood sugar is, or anything else. And frankly, given what the government has done with our data to date, I would encourage others to do the same. Say, thank you, but no, I will not be doing that. And it's very bothersome to me that the woman who Bobby Kennedy has supported as Surgeon General, Casey Means, she owns a company that makes wearables. She owns a company that makes, called Levels, that makes a wearable device for blood sugar. Her brother owns a company that makes money on wearables. How in the world is this not the greatest conflict of interest ever known to man? And it is quite distressing to me that Bobby Kennedy Jr. is involved with this. And it makes you think that he has been kneecapped and doesn't really have any authority at all.
Let's hope that turns around too on that. Thanks for being on, Dr. Kelly. We'll do this again soon.
Thanks, Roy.
You
Bye.
got it. Dr. Kelly Victory, saying it as we say, only as she can. Oh boy, some of the things you do. We had some of the local news of that. They had some video of horses escaping the rapidly growing juniper fire, and let's hope they get that one contained because there's lots of well, not lots, it's rural, but there's lots of structures there. Of course, we ran Brian Koberger, the one who pled guilty or did a plea deal in where the 4 young ladies, college students up there in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, I'll get it out. He's made a plea deal. He won't get the death penalty, but he will serve the rest of his life in prison, and he waived his right to appeal. And hopefully, because it's Idaho, that's the way it will stay. Drunks and knifings and stuff are all part of the corona crime blotter. 105 alarm calls, 17 area checks, 324 disturbances, 115 property checks, 49 welfare checks, and 88 total individuals arrested in the city of Corona last week. Man found dead Wednesday on Morongo. According to deputies, there was an arrest in that murder case out there in the pass. 4 out of 10 inland residents on Medi-Cal might lose if the big, beautiful bill passes, and that's what we were talking about. With Dr. Kelly victory on that, a lot of them need to be moved off of Medi-Cal. That's what I was for. City of Chino is welcoming new recruits for their Chino Police Department. Again, crews battling the juniper fire out there between Paris and Hemet. So we'll be monitoring that real closely. Myriad of cops on evidence destruction day of that. City of Riverside, there was another one in Hyde Park. There was a residential fire. So again, IE cops were busy. Even Donald J. hates cell phones. He was trying to do a conference with some of the religious leaders. Over 1,000 people were on there, and AT&T couldn't get the job done. Breaking, as we said, Trump is seeking ways to exclude non-citizens from being counted in the U.S. census. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller says Democrats in panic. Hey, they straighten out not only the voter rolls, but those eligible to vote. And we get to same-day ballots in 26, at least on federal elections. Holy cow. You're going to see a humongous difference in elections. Circle City, I think they don't have the Circle, the old racetrack from over 100 years ago, the Barney Oldfield and stuff. But there's it lit up there in Corona. I think Grand Avenue, as they used to call it. I don't think it goes in a complete circle anymore. That's why they used to call Corona the Circle City, and it was originally a racetrack. The Wolf Fire, yeah, that one's hopefully nothing. Hopefully they get that contained very quickly. Free microchips for dogs and kitty cats in Moreno Valley through the rest of July. Lake Elsinore Storm, want to thank Big Fog for keeping their guys cool this season. This is a very sad story. Aiden Zing, 16-year-old motocross racer from Hemet, lost his life. There at Loretta Lynn's, she's got a big track for decades. She's had all the kids there doing motocross, got a big track there. Unfortunately, very prominent. And he was sponsored by Monster Energy, was one of the up-and-comers, and he was from Hemet, 16 years old. Unfortunately, lost his life at the motocross races at Loretta Lynn's Park on that, and condolences to the family. That's heartbreaking. But the ugly side of the motorsports business. Sheriff Station DUI double. Mobile cops get their man. A San Bernardino deputy was awarded a medal for saving a child from getting hit by a train. So good job, Purdue cops. Man, there it is. Police activity. A stabbing down in Riverside. So they've been popping. Of course, Mandini, or whatever the hell his name is, racist to the core. Him a fatal hit and run versus a bicyclist on that. Jail intel team conducts arrests in Murrieta for woman attempting to smuggle drugs into San Bernardino. Another tragic story. Lake fire in Silverwood and all that other stuff as we close out this Magic Monday. Hello there for today. As we usually say at this time. Mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours wide to hear the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
The preceding was a paid program.
All right, Roy. Well, take it easy. I will talk to you tomorrow.
You got her.
Bye now.